Hello, denizens. Welcome to Hackintosh Beat. Very excited to inform all of you that OpenCore 074 has been released, and one of my favorite upgrade tools, OC Gen X, has returned after some delay, and it is also providing 074 support. Hackintosh has also been updated. First of all, the big new feature of 074 is that it is Monterey ready, or macOS 12 as it's also called. The era of macOS X or 10 or whatever you want to call it is well and truly dead. I was always taught that full point releases meant bigger, more significant software changes, right? So Monterey should be huge. Hey, it's only a number. So far, Big Sur was where most of the recent effort was put into the OS, as it started the Apple Silicon transition, and Monterey looks very much like a point upgrade to me. That's not a criticism. Windows users are already complaining that there isn't much to herald in Windows 11. I do remember when Apple upgraded Final Cut Pro from 10.4.1 to 10.4.2, and that was a massive change, especially for a point release. It could have been a full point release as far as I was concerned. Come to think of it, FCP seems to be stuck in the X era also. So, what's in a number? Now, whether Monterey is ready, well, that's another story, but I don't play with beta OSs. I'll toss it on a spare SSD just to play with it when it's released, and I'll report back to you. Some news on my end. I've changed my SMBIOS from iMac 20,1, which was the recommended SMBIOS for my Intel 10700 box, to iMac Pro 1,1. The main difference between the two is that iMac Pro 1,1 does not expect an iGPU in the mix. Traditionally, macOS would offload H.264 encoding and decoding to the iGPU in helper mode. This was especially useful if you did not have a dedicated GPU, obviously, but especially useful back when Apple included really crappy GPUs. But ever since the AMD RX 580, with some tweaking, the dedicated GPUs do a better job than Intel's QuickSync. So, after I upgraded to macOS 11.6, I thought I would test to see if it should be using a different SMBIOS, because I'm a crazy person. One of the things that precipitated this test, that my AMD 3600 Hackintosh with the RX 580 was working really well, and it felt just as fast as my Intel setup. So I thought I would do some simple Final Cut render tests. Nothing scientific. Major caveat, this is what I found on my systems. I'll put a description of what they are below. Your mileage may vary, but before I get to the chart and numbers, I wanted to say that the upgrade to OpenCore 074 using Hackintosh went perfectly without incident, and my AMD system, where I used OS Gen X for the upgrade, also went stunningly. Remember, backup before you upgrade, and test on a USB stick first before you commit. For new visitors to this channel, I use Hackintosh for my Intel Gigabyte Vision G Hackintosh because that is one of the motherboards it supports, and it makes life really easy. Using OS Gen X to update my AMD rig requires a bit of copying and pasting from the previous EFI folder, but that's easy. I use plist edit pro because I hate proper tree. Poking around the latest AMD install, I noticed that the special patches that are required to make it work have literally been cut in half. I did notice there was a small improvement in Geekbench scores. Yes, admittedly, a synthetic test. Was it because of a simpler set of patches? Who knows? Don't care. Now onto my Final Cut test results and why I switched to the iMac Pro 1,1 SMBIOS. I should add that I have a Radeon 7 GPU. if I'm lucky enough to get my hands on a RX 6900 XT, I might have to update to Mac Pro 7,1. Wouldn't that be a tragedy? But it's a $2,000 card up here in Canada. Ouch. The test video was 13 minutes and 13 seconds long, shot and edited in 4K 30 FPS, but conformed to 1080p, which is how I produce my YouTube videos. On to the chart. Here's the chart as I promised, and hopefully it's readable. I really hate those tech sites where the charts are completely unreadable. I don't understand the point of it. Anyway, test number 1, H.265, my Intel 10700 with iGPU turned on in the BIOS with the Radeon for card, and it's the Apple OS decides how it's going to divvy these things up. If I've got some screenshots, I'll show you. And this is my regular iMac 20,1, which is technically the most compatible with the Comet Lake CPU, and I got a time of 7:36, which is not bad. That's like half of what the 13-minute video was. And for the most part, I do 5-6 minute videos, and to have them output in 3 minutes is no big deal. So I'm not doing a lot of long form stuff. So, but okay, that's the time there. So I thought, okay, now that I've got the AMD box nice up and running with the latest Mac OS and also the latest version of OpenCore, let's see what the times are. Now, just so you know, this AMD chip is 6 cores, 12 threads, as opposed to the 8-core, 16 threads of the Intel box running iMac Pro 1,1 because the AMD chip has no iGPU, so you have to run it headless, and it came in at 7 minutes and 57 seconds, and I went, what the hell? I mean, it's got the crappy RX 580 and a CPU that is a couple of cores short of the Intel box. That really doesn't make sense. That's kind of embarrassing. So then that's what precipitated all this. And then, okay, another H.265 test, this time with my Intel box running with the iGPU turned off, but running at the iMac Pro 1,1 BIOS, and it's 6 minutes 35 seconds, which that's the best. That's a full minute shaved off of what I was rendering it at before. So, okay, well, that kind of follows along the theory that this particular system works better at iMac Pro 1,1. Then the next test was with no iGPU, but going back to the iMac 20,1 Comet Lake SMBIOS, and it ballooned to 10 minutes and 50 seconds. So that sucked big ones. Obviously, that's not going to be the right choice. The next one was no iGPU, but I thought, okay, is the Mac Pro 7,1 SMBIOS going to be better than the iMac Pro 1,1? And no, it was exactly the same time. And both those SMBIOSes basically assume that there's not going to be an iGPU. So I'm not surprised. The next one, H.265, the Intel box, no iGPU, but I added the Radeon Boost Kext, the famous Radeon Boost Kext, which people are using to improve their Geekbench scores. And I thought, okay, does it actually really have an effect on Final Cut Pro? Because I don't care about improving my synthetic scores. And it actually was 5 seconds slower, but that's within the margin of error. So obviously for this task, the Final Cut Pro task, I don't need Radeon Boost. I don't know how it affects Logic or maybe some other pieces of software, but I just wasn't prepared to go through that thorough testing because I got a life. And then I thought, let's do some good old classic H.264 compression using the iGPU. And you can see in this screen grab that using the Intel gadget that the iGPU is running really strong. It's doing its thing, running it at 20,1, and it ballooned to 12 minutes and 45 seconds. So I don't know what that Intel iGPU quick sync was doing, because
It looked like it was hammering away at it, but clearly it wasn't doing a lot or enough coordination with the cores and the Radeon 7, because the Radeon 7 looks like it's loafing along, as you can see right here. That really sucked. Then I thought, oh, let's try the crappy AMD 6-core 12-thread with the lowly RX 580, and holy crap, 7 minutes and 11 seconds. That was actually quite shocking, considering there is no iGPU assist, and the last one, of course, was the Intel no iGPU Radeon 7 with the iMac Pro 1,1 and 3 minutes 40 seconds. So this is all fascinating, and the main reason why I am now using iMac Pro 1,1 for my computer. And just to keep everybody happy, here's some meaningless Geekbench scores. As you can see, the 1,1 actually gave better performance. So now you're going to ask me, why didn't I just build my i7-10700 Hackintosh using the iMac Pro SMBIOS to begin with? Well, the general rule of thumb is to pick an SMBIOS that best matches your CPU, which in this case was the Comet Lake 20,1 SMBIOS, even though the iMac 1,1 was a better match for my Radeon 7 GPU. But after seeing the 6-core Ryzen setup do so well against an 8-core 16-thread Intel box, especially since the AMD system was using my lousy RX 580, I figured it was time to see if I could get better performance out of my main editing unit, and as you can tell from the results, it was well worth the change. One last thing I wanted to add. There are all kinds of places where I could see the iGPU kicking in using the Intel Power Gadget, mostly streaming videos and conference apps like Zoom. I could do comprehensive testing, but I'm lazy. Over to you. What's your SMBIOS experiences? Do you think I screwed something up? Was there something I could have done better? I always appreciate your comments. Well, most of the time. Till next time, denizens, this has been Hackintosh Beat. Be seeing you.